Well, students, we're going to keep working on these totem poles. If you still have part of your totem to color in, I would like you to finish coloring that in. I know this yellow is going to kind of blend right in with this tan color, but I wanted to get that area colored. If you still needed to draw some background, I would like you to finish tracing that out with a marker. So make sure to press that color on hard. So I've got all of my stuff done, but if you still had like some zigzag lines, or you needed to put some big shapes, medium shapes, and small shapes to have foreground, middle ground, and background, if you needed to add like some waves or something, or some clouds, you can draw that in there with your marker to finish that out. And then I've already colored a good portion of this, so this example won't take as long. But a few things that I'm looking for would be to use some color mixing. So I'm going to use, for this river here, I'm going to use a little bit of this darker blue, and I'm kind of outlining those lines. Then I'm going to shade it in a little bit lighter, and then I'm going to take my lighter blue, and then I'm going to press that on hard to get a good mix. So please do some mixing. I could even add a little bit of white to it. You can see I left the waves white on this part to make it look like the waves are crashing. I'm going to carry this all the way back to my horizon line, trying to use some skills of observation to make it look as real as I can. And once I'm done with this side, you can see that side's all colored. I'm going to move over here to these grasses. I would like you, just like I did on this side, if you trace a hill or a line, that's a good idea to keep it kind of inside that shape, but then use kind of a zigzag line. I'm going up and down, and then I'm going to use this green. Then I'm going to move to kind of a lime green, and then I'm going to use a yellow green. So if you don't have enough greens, you could always put yellow into your green, or sometimes you can put blue into your green. I'll do that right here down at the bottom. You can see this. So here I could put a little bit of blue into my green, and it'll make it look like a really dark forest green. Okay. Now I still have space, so then I just repeat the pattern. I use that zigzag line all the way up to my next hill. So that would come up to this, and then I switch to my lime green, and that would go all the way up to that line, because that hill kind of marks out a new field. So here I've got kind of like a wheat field or a dirt field, grass fields, so doing different things like that. I think this one I'm going to go with a little bit of maybe like a sandy dirt. So I'm going to go with this, and then I'm going to mix it into a little bit of brown, and then to make that brown look a little bit darker, put a little bit of gray into it. Now I have this tree left to do, so I'm going to take this and do some mixing of maybe some brown, kind of just like what I just did, a little bit of this lighter brown or tan color, and then put a little bit of gray in it to make it a little bit darker. You can see this one I made it more like a fall shape, a fall tree with reds and oranges and yellows. I'm going to make this one still a green tree, so make it kind of go from darker around these sides, then move it into this lime green, just kind of continue that pattern. Try to press the color on hard and make sure you don't have a bunch of white spots that are still showing. Since I've got some white spots up here, I'm going to take a little bit of that blue, make that green look a little bit darker up near the top, and fill in those white spots. Now, the horizon line, I'm doing mountains. You may be doing something different, but I'm going to kind of shade it from dark to light. So I'm going to go with gray on this side, and then get lighter and lighter and lighter. Same thing, gray on that side, lighter and lighter and lighter. Then I did gray, lighter and lighter and lighter. Then I'm going to use some brown and color that on top of that. to mix it, and then do this light brown on top of that. If you want anything to be white, like the clouds, I would color them white. Color the snow white. You can see that I've already worked on my sun, but I did a mix here and I'm adding some orange, mixing that with a little bit of yellow. You can see that I traced around these edges of these lines too. Now when all the land is done, then I'll give you a paintbrush and you may paint the sky. Now you could do a daytime sky, you could do a nighttime sky, you could do a sunset. I'm gonna do a sunset example for this one. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a little bit of this red over here. If you get a little bit of paint on the table, it's not a big deal because I'm gonna wipe off the tables anyway. So I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna use this red. I wanna be careful. I noticed that I got a little bit on my totem pole here, so I wanna make sure to paint around that. I'm gonna start here with this darkest red. Then I'm gonna rinse off my brush. I'm never gonna splash it or bang it. I'm just gonna dip it in, wipe it off. This red has a bunch of cracks on the sides. So if you notice that there's any cracks in the paint, be extra gentle. If you break the paint, then I'm gonna give you a break and we're gonna take your brush away. And I don't want you to lose your chance to paint because it's super fun. So just be gentle. If you listen to my brush, you should not be able to hear it. Taking my time, kind of painting around the sun. And I'm following the color wheel in this example too. So I'm gonna go from red, we'll come around here. Then I'm gonna go to pink. So let's paint right around that. I'm gonna rinse off my brush, switch over to pink, because we don't want these paints mixing. The only mixing that's happening is on your paper. We're gonna go into pink here. And you can see that I'm just like painting a line, picking up my brush, painting a line, pick up my brush, so that I don't ever scrub it or scratch it on the paper, because we want our brush to always stay in a nice point. Then I'm gonna go from this pink then to orange, and it looks like somebody got a little bit of blue into this orange. That's why it looks like it's a little bit dirty. So make sure you wash your brush good. And then we'll put that orange into the pink a little bit, get that to mix. And then we can finish up with a little bit of yellow. And that's one way to create a really cool sunset. And I could use this yellow here or use this yellow. And I'll follow that right to my horizon line. And we'll do as much as we can, get these wrapped up. So one last thing I wanted to show you, in case you wanted to do a blue sky instead. This one doesn't have all the land colored in it, but it will work for doing blue. You can see that the blue, I don't have very much of this blue. So I'm only gonna do part of this so that you have more work time. So I mainly would just use a little bit of blue maybe under the clouds. And I would do that over here on this side. And then a little bit of this darker blue up at the top. So then you can do some shading. So I would do that all the way across here. Let's just pretend I went around the clouds and stuff and around my totem. And then once you use a little bit of this darker blue, then use just like a little bit of water. And you can get those to kind of blend together and bring that down to your horizon line. And then it's a nice example of shading from a really dark color to a lighter color. Now, if it's not looking great, then just add an extra layer to it. I'm just going really fast because I wanted you guys to have more work time, but since there's not a ton of blue in there, that's kind of the way that I would do it, to do a little bit of shading. And if the paper starts to get too wet, make sure you wipe off your brush. Otherwise the colors tend to kind of bleed and mix together, but this could be a good blue sky mix of a really light blue all the way up to a dark blue. So let's have fun working on these totem poles and finishing up these landscapes.